Hello family, welcome to day 3 of 12 days in the disciplines. Today we're actually going from my least favorite discipline to my favorite, study. But first of all, I should let you know the reason that I'm wearing a Star Wars t-shirt today. Today is actually my birthday, so this is something that my kids bought for me. They would definitely want me to show it off on video, and also Star Wars rocks. So what is study? According to Richard Foster, study has to do with the disciplining of the mind. There are 2 scriptures that help us to illuminate this concept. The first is Jesus' unpacking of the Shema in the book of Matthew, where he says that we're to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and with all of our mind. The second one is in Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 4. I'm going to read it for you. He says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." And then this is a real application to study. He says, "Whatever you've learned from me, or received, or heard from me, or seen in me, put it all into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." And if there's ever a time in our history where we want the God of peace to be with us, where we want to have our thoughts captive to Christ, it's probably right now. Our minds need the grace of God. We don't naturally want to think about what's good all the time. And it doesn't come easy to us to sit down and memorize scripture or to attend to a book with a level of discipline to read something that's a little bit beyond our comfort level in reading. And of course, study isn't just about Bible study. There are so many other ways that we can discipline our minds through the discipline of study. And one of those is reading really good books. Now again, this is going to be different for everybody depending on where your level of learning is at and what in particular would be helpful for you at this point in your journey. But there are certain books that really helped me, so I thought I'd just share a few titles with you. One is The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. Another is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Another devotional classic, recent devotional classic, is The Divine Mentor by Wayne Cordero, which teaches you the SOAP method of Bible journaling. And then there's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And this one I read just this year, and it really revolutionized my view of Sabbath and slowing, a couple of practices that I hadn't really engaged in very well. So again, whatever works for you, a mix of old and new reading is always good. There's gold to mine in those classics. So again, sit down with a pen and paper, find something you enjoy, and give yourself lots of grace as you begin the discipline of study of books. I'll never forget when I was 19 years old, and I did a program with Pastor David Newman called Master's Commission. And every day he would have us awake in the church at 8 a.m. and we would have a solid block of prayer, and then there would be scripture reading and then scriptural memorization. And one of the requirements for passing this program was that we had to have 200 verses of scripture memorized by the end of term. And when I began, I thought, this is just absolutely impossible. How can anybody memorize 200 verses of scripture? But little by little, day by day, I started to read these verses in the scriptures that actually helped me with my day-to-day life when I would recall them. And a lot of those 200 verses that I committed to memory all the way back then still serve me so well on a day-to-day basis now as I'm trying to discipline my mind and my thoughts to Christ. So, how we study the scriptures has a lot to do with our personal preferences, but we are definitely commended to study. If you read Psalm chapter 119, you can't help but walk away with the impression that there is delight and there's so much grace to find in memorizing, meditating, and studying the scriptures. So when I sat down myself yesterday to study, I employed a number of tools to help me. One is a good Bible reading guide, and of course you can find these on the Bible app. I like to use an app by the Bible Project called Read Scripture. And the reason I like the Bible Project is because they take us in large portions of scripture at a time, sometimes entire books, and they do an overview video that will show you how the book is broken down as literature, and then it will show you key themes. So when I sat down with the Bible Project and the book of John, I sat with a pen, paper, pausing the video often, and just writing and sketching down everything that they were saying. So as they were talking about the grand overview of the Gospel of John, I was writing those sections off in my Bible and giving them topic headings so that I would know what the sections of the book were. This is actually a sample of the Bible Project's Book of John illustration, and the full video will give you, of course, a much bigger breakdown, but it shows you all the key themes. So when I returned to the passage myself, again, there were a number of free tools that I used to help me study. The first one is one called blueletterbible.com, or the Blue Letter Bible app. And what this one allows me to do is when I see a word in the New or Old Testament that I would like to know the Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic for, I can actually find the original word in the Blue Letter Bible, and it'll show me the word's full range of meaning to help me to understand its place in the passage. Another one is to have a good Bible background commentary. Now again, this will totally depend on your level of learning and your level of comfort when it comes to that kind of literature. But you can get a good commentary set like the IVP Bible Background Commentary by Craig Keener for just under $50, whether an audiobook or Kindle or hard copy, whatever your preference is. And those things, having a good study Bible, a good reading guide, a good lexicon like Blue Letter Bible, those will just help you to be able to digest the scripture into the smaller pieces you'll need. So if you have a study Bible, you'll notice already that if you turn to the first page of the book, it'll tell you who the author was, what some of the key themes are, what the purpose is that the book was written, and maybe even a few of the details about the author's life. And these things are just helpful for helping us to exegete or to understand and interpret the passage before applying it to our life. So I would love to know what works for you as you study scripture. I don't know if this will be helpful for you or not, but as a young parent, I wanted my study of scripture to rub off on my kids. I wanted it to be contagious. And I was afraid that if they came in and saw me surrounded by commentaries, it wouldn't look like I was enjoying myself. So I borrowed this tip from Dave Overholt. He takes 3 crayons with him when he does his Bible study. I use a red one for when I feel like God is speaking to me through the passage kind of devotionally, and I'll mark that off. I use a blue one for things that I want to dig into and study more. And then I'll use a yellow for things that I want to memorize because they're encouraging to me, or they would help me to hold my thoughts captive to Christ. So blue, red, yellow. As you can see, my Bible is just a cacophony of color and markings and my own indecipherable notes, for other people at least. And amazingly enough, after I started doing this method, I actually found my daughter in her room with her own crayons and her own Bible open doing her study. So mission accomplished. It can make Bible reading a little bit more contagious. I would love to know what works for you as you're studying scripture. I'll close with this. There's no right or wrong way. As long as all of this is for the purpose of opening the eyes of our hearts and our minds to the greatness of God, the amazing quality of the scriptures, and the availability of His grace to us. Grace and peace to you until tomorrow.